let that slide in. Long story short, because what was going on is the education at that time they were still developing the lie at that time when they were teaching it to you. They were still developing the curriculum to reflect what they call social studies and history in their favor, or with the purpose of usurping all of our families, clans, and indigenous governments, and essentially saying, well, we need to remove y'all's, at least in your mind, we need to remove your birthright and heritage on this land. So, coming back around to it, over the years, and y'all, I know y'all seen this as well. Y'all seen us be classified as many different names, but even more intricately, y'all seen the different movements of, at one point we were, the James Brown era, Black and Proud. And then that, and y'all correct me at any time, that transitioned into us saying we are African and or African American. Do y'all remember at any point when we started to make that transition?
That was in the 60s, definitely.
In the 60s?
Absolutely.
In the 60s.
Yeah. And so prior to the 60s, were we in mass, were we claiming that we were African American and or African?
No, Negroes.
No, definitely not.
Negroes is what we, okay. Yeah, so and Negro was just another classification based on what we call denationalization, right? And denationalization was was way more serious and prominent than the slavery narrative that they gave us, right? Because the truth is, a lot of people, listen, saying this to Black people, I mean, I should only say this in-house. But it is what it is, and I want us to feel this psychologically. Black people, listen, Aboriginal Black people of America, we were bringing over indentured servants from the West and the East long before a lot of people even knew about this place. We were bringing them in. In other words, there's always been a lot of trafficking coming in and out of this country. Needless to say, so we went from Negroes to African Americans, and if I'm not mistaken, Jesse Jackson was we kind of let Jesse slide. We don't really point a finger at him because he kind of fly under the radar somehow, some way. But he was the one that coined that phrase and led the movement for us to be labeled as African Americans. Meanwhile, he knows that his family, his whole family claims Cherokee Indian. His whole family claims Cherokee Indian. And so, him along with a lot of other political Black leaders with particular agendas were leading us astray from our political birthright and lawful birthright to this land. Now, again, coming back to it, from Negroes to African Americans, and so this is where the Pan-African movement happened, because y'all started wearing them dashikis in the 70s, right?
Late 60s,
60s.
60s and 70s is where we started wearing the dashikis. Okay. Well, my point I don't see nothing wrong with that. My point is, the culture, the African culture overall, is relatively similar to American culture, right? In general, especially prior to colonialism. Let me say that again. African culture and American culture is very, very similar prior to colonialism, meaning we all had tribal governments at that time, and our culture was, just to keep it real short and simple, very, very harmonious and resonant with nature, right? So I don't see an issue with that, but let's open it up and dissect where we at with it today. So just recently are many of our people in America discovering and supporting the fact that we've always been here, right? Because we're still coming off the fringes of a movement that's saying we were African and only African, right? And just a few years ago, we had Ghana talking about the come home movement and all of that, and and a lot of our people were looking to repatriate to different African countries, and a lot of them did. And we also found out that a lot of people repatriated to African countries, went over there and realized, okay, this don't seem like I've been invited home. This don't seem like I've been invited home. A lot of them, some of them stayed, said, I'm gonna make a way the best way I can here. A lot of them returned with, needless to say, interesting stories, interesting experiences. So we've got the Pan-African movement, which I'm not sure where they at with the idea of repatriating anymore. We've got the Aboriginal American movement, and I want to say these are both on two extremes, because you've got the Pan-African movement saying we from Africa, and we support the diaspora all around the world of Africans spread it all around the world via whatever means, but especially through slave trades, which a lot of slave trading was, well, let's say, over-exaggerated. I'm not gonna say it's completely fabricated, but over-exaggerated, especially stories of transatlantic slave trades coming to the East Coast of North America. A little bit over-fabricated, right? You've got Aboriginal Americans saying, we ain't never been African. We ain't African. We ain't got no links to Africa. We ain't never been African, which is interesting take. And possibly somewhat true on to some extent. Right? Because we're still wrestling with whether or not the out of Africa theory for all mankind is true now. We're wrestling with that now, right? Because they found bones in this country. I believe the guy's name is Albert Perry, who they say his bones are older than Lucy's in Africa. Right. And this is a melanated man that they found and did the DNA testing on. So the out of Africa theory is now being challenged. Interesting, right? So now in between these, we've got the Foundational Black American Movement, with another word for short, called it FBAs. And I didn't know this, but the term FBA, or Foundational Black Americans, was coined by the guy who produced the Hidden Colors series, Tariq Nasheed. All right, he's the one that coined that term, Foundational Black Americans. Now, I've known about the term Foundational Black American. I know some people that that claim it, but I'm still unclear on a few things. I'm unclear on what they believe their origin is. Foundational Black Americans primarily represent this. Black people are the ones that built America, since let's say slavery times, right? We built everything from then up to now, but also too, I think they have a particular date. 1526 is a significant date for them. I'm not sure exactly went down in 1526, which is so monumental. But still, looking at some of the conversations that they had, they're wrestling with being foundational Black Americans, but also not necessarily claiming being Aboriginal American Indian. So I'm kind of unclear on that. I don't know, what they're claiming their origin is exactly, right? And in some conversation, they're willing to say they're indigenous, but they don't want to adopt the term Aboriginal American or Indian, or American Indian, or whatever have you. All right, so just laying all of this on the table again, you've got an extreme right or left, whichever way you want to look at it. We on the extreme side. We saying we Aboriginal Americans, we've always been here. This is our land, and not only is this our land, we're gonna reestablish our own indigenous governments and start to build jurisdiction and infrastructure. That's what we saying we finna do. We saying we taking back everything that's ours. we gonna build on it the same way we always used to do. That's what we always used to do. Now I will say this. That's already. I will say this. What I do see as a I don't want to necessarily say a flaw. Let's say an opportunity to grow within the Aboriginal American movement is just what I just said. I see a lot of us looking for particular tribes that we may have been linked to, and that's fine. But at that, I would suggest that we look beyond identity politics. Go find your tribe. Go find your lineage, of course, because you want to know your family history, and also we want to be able to continue to validate our heritage and lineage on this land, because it's been deliberately erased, very strategically and deliberately erased. But once you find that, you got to figure out, okay, so what am I going to do with this information? What am I going to do? How am I going to collaborate with other people of like mind and be productive in that lane? Again, this is where tribal governments come back into place, which we're establishing jurisdiction, but not only just establishing jurisdiction, we also have to build infrastructure within that jurisdiction. And we're capable of doing it. Again, if we built this country, we're capable of building anything, right? Now I'm gonna hurry up a little bit, because I see we almost running out of time here. Our foundational Black Americans. This is what I see that they're most concerned with, because I had to try to figure out what was the ambition among them. Seems like they're primarily concerned with reparations. I'm assuming reparations for slavery and everything afterward. All of the atrocities afterward, redlining, gentrification, Jim Crow laws, environmental racism, all of the above, right? And also too, they're concerned with gatekeeping our culture, which let's be straight. A good majority of our culture that we use to monetize is mostly entertainment. I mean, Chairman Pops, you correct me if I'm wrong. Outside, a Black American culture, how, and what other ways have we monetized it outside of entertainment?
Sports.
That's it, yeah. Entertainment.
That's about it.
That's about it. So we got to be honest with ourselves about that. Our culture has mostly, that we have, been very prominent in and excelled in, as far as cultural matters go, it's mostly music and sports. Music and sports. And so what they want, how they want to gatekeep it, I wonder, but I would suggest this, or I suggest we recognize this. We're only going to be able to gatekeep our entertainment-based culture up to the threshold of how much control and ownership we have in the technology that allows you to channel to present our entertainment.
True
That's
enough.
about it. In other words, let me come back. We're only going to be able to gatekeep our entertainment culture up to the threshold of how much control and ownership we have in the technology. In other words, in YouTube and any technological distribution to where you can get your music streamed. Say for instance, take for instance, we don't own Facebook. Facebook shut down our Straight Talk page. We can't do shit about it because we don't own it. A lot of people who are dropping some good information on YouTube say their pages get shut down all the time. Can't do nothing about it because you don't own the technology. We can put our entertainment on this technology, yeah, but we don't own the 70,000 square foot plant of YouTube. We don't own it or have any stake in it at all. So we can only negotiate the gatekeeping up until that threshold. So I suggest strongly that if we want any kind of leverage on negotiating, saying, hey, to the rest of the world, we're not going to allow you to utilize our entertainment and not give us the largest cut. Well, we just have to be realistic and say, how do you think they're going to respond and say, well, we ain't gonna let you utilize our technology to put your entertainment out there. But they have done that already. Now, saying that to say this, foundational Black Americans is from my perspective, you seem to be somewhere in the middle between Aboriginal Americans and Pan-Africans, leaning more towards the Aboriginal American side, right? It's going to behoove you. Matter of fact, you don't have much of a choice other than to go full Monty. You got to go the whole. You got to go all the way. And you got to put it all on the line and say, okay, we're not going to be able to only try to gatekeep our culture in proximity to, lack of a better term, white supremacist spaces. In other words, white supremacists own technology and try to negotiate and leverage our fair share without having your own jurisdiction and your own infrastructure. You ain't gonna be able to negotiate that very far. Past that threshold. I mean, and you got, listen, I'm just one of those, I'm a very warrior-minded, military-minded guy. I know I look like a nice guy, but when I'm thinking about stuff, I'm looking at it from a chessboard perspective, and how would a parasite respond to an offense that I'm making towards them? It is pretty easy to figure out. They'll shut down your source if they feel like they can't, if you're gonna either get the majority out of the deal, or they ain't gonna get nothing out of it, because they back is against the wall all the time. All the time. They face life or death every time you advance. So they're willing to cut your source off. So you have to align at this point. You have to say to yourself, all right, now we willing to own and control absolutely everything that is ours 100%. Now, our Pan-Africans, listen, at this point, let me say this to y'all in particular. I think it's a bit insignificant for you to highlight and stand on, whether you African or you are Aboriginal American. I hear a lot of the comments coming from the Pan-African side that are calling all of us who are claiming Aboriginal American heritage and lineage, y'all are calling us pretendians now. I see it. And I understand where you're coming from. But all this time, we've been told we were nothing but African. I understand. And we've built such an identity based on that. I mean, because I'll be the first one. I'm honest. Back in 2019, we did a whole event called Return of Africa. Very successful event. We all in there with dashikis and all kind of stuff on. Very successful event, and we did the event for the same reason most people do events, for some level of fundraising. But the point was to throw in a cultural event that would galvanize us towards a particular goal. And we did it under the culture of African heritage. But it's okay when you get some new information, get some updated information, you just adjust. All right, you just adjust. Again, still, I ain't got nothing against my African people. I ain't got nothing against my African family. Out of everybody else in the world, every other culture in the world, that one is most similar to ours anyway. They're most similar to ours anyway. It doesn't, at this point, it doesn't serve us much benefit and or give us much leverage to completely disassociate from Africa. Now, side note, I understand that we have had some, what you call some infiltration from, from Africans coming over, either, looking down on Aboriginal Americans and or infiltrating Black cultural spaces and playing the same game Caucasian people play, which is buying up state or interest in our culture and not giving us a fair share and or trying to take over. This is what y'all heard what happened with the Essence Fest. In other words, Essence Fest is not owned by a Black American anymore. It's owned by Africans. In the recent Essence Fest festival, they brought in a lot of African talent, and and didn't really showcase Black American talent. And a lot of Black people was mad at that. They was like, we ain't show up here to eat, to eat no jollof rice and stuff. Black people in America was mad about it. I understand, but my point is, what leverage do you have? What true leverage do you have to negotiate ownership and control of these things? Let me land this plane on this because I know we over time. Our Pan-African family here in America, in other words, Black Americans were claiming Pan-Africanism. Of course, you ain't got to worry about getting deported. That's not an issue. But I suggest to you, since you are Pan-African, I mean, listen, I'm Pan-African in practice, but my status is Aboriginal American. I've got African partners. We already got plans on trade. We already got plans on trade. I suggest you go to your African connections and start setting up those type of business deals. Out of everything else, we've celebrated the culture long enough. We beyond that at this point. We're beyond celebrating the culture. We're beyond the identity politics of it at this point. The name of the game right now is we need to collaborate with melanated people around the globe who are of like mind. As a matter of fact, also I'm saying that to Aboriginal Americans too. You don't got the option of saying I'm Aboriginal American and I'm just gonna claim my family tribe here in America, and that's gonna be it. I mean that's gonna be good enough. Because the more and more you begin to claim your heritage, the more and more you threaten the sovereignty of the United States. And the more and more they're gonna say, well, okay, y'all finna start figuring out how to get your stuff back. We finna start bringing more immigrants in. Because mind you, they don't have to bring immigrants in to buy up your land. It's foreign people buying American land every day from another country. They ain't even here buying up land. And we just have to think about where this country is going based on what we're discovering and how we're moving and how they plan on countering us moving forward. I'm gonna say it again, identity politics is not the last step. It's all good. Figure out who you are. but also figure out where to collaborate, figure out where the lanes of collaboration are between Aboriginal Americans, foundational Black Americans, and Pan-Africans. As there's much opportunity. And we don't even have to explain and lay out every lane right here on the show. We know where it's at. Just like the chairman always says, we have to come together, get over the very petty differences of your identity politics. Get over that. Practice whatever your spirituality is and your culture is at the house. But you got to get on this field and play as a team, because everybody else is playing us as a team. You don't want to walk on the field. I mean, you wouldn't walk on a football field. They got 11 people on their side, and you got 2 or 3 on your side, and you're trying to score a touchdown. And you know this is a football game. So let me land it right there. We 9 minutes past the hour. Last time, foundational Black Americans, Aboriginal Americans, Pan-Africans. There doesn't have to be a separation between us, especially not right now. As a matter of fact, especially after this show, they're going to infiltrate those differences as they always have. And when they see division, they slide right in them cracks. They're very good at that. Very good at sliding them cracks. That's how we've always been infiltrated and or defeated. But yeah, I'll land it right there.
So, you know, and I'm glad you brought it out like that, because, you know, first and foremost, we're not trying to get out here and raise our flags. We came up with this idea, you know, we're better than this. We're not competing with Aboriginal people.